Hey, what's up, everybody? Tommy West here, and I wanted to drop a video on y'all. We have to discuss this. As a lifelong basketball fan, I've got to get this out there. Okay, JJ Reddick, LeBron James's podcast partner, the old man and the three. JJ Reddick said that Jordan dominated the expansion era, and that league expansion had watered down, quote unquote, watered down the talent in the league. And I guess that's why Jordan was able to dominate everybody in the league, is because the league had been decimated by expansion. Um, JJ's got it, and I'm gonna tell you, I live in North Carolina. I've been a Charlotte Hornets fan my entire life. There was a short stint where I was a Charlotte Bobcats fan, but we try to forget those days. Uh, but apparently, JJ Redick may be the next head coach for the Charlotte Hornets. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But my gripe with JJ is, of all the LeBron James boosters out there in the media, all of his fanboys, you got your Nick Wright, you got Shannon Sharp, obviously, but JJ Redick specifically likes to make his arguments for propping up what LeBron James has done. And LeBron James has had an impressive career, no doubt. He's been an all-star, all NBA caliber player for 20 years. That's incredible. But it's not really, doesn't really measure up to the GOAT status that Michael Jordan, that his career left on the league. And so JJ Redick specifically likes to tear down the past players and teams to diminish Michael Jordan's accomplishments in an attempt to make LeBron James look better. And it's pretty weak sauce. I can debate Michael Jordan over LeBron James all day and twice on Sundays, and I can do it without really going in on LeBron. I can just talk about the things that Jordan did. But anyway, JJ says that the expansion teams watered down the league, and that led to Michael Jordan's that led to his success, I guess you would say. First of all, before we even talk about expansion teams, let's get this out of the way. This is an interesting stat I saw. The bottom 5 teams in the league, no, the win average for the bottom 5 teams in the league during Jordan's career was 22 wins a game. That's what you would expect out of the 5 worst teams in the league. About 22 wins. If you look at LeBron James's long and illustrious career, and you look at the bottom 5 teams throughout that 20-year stretch, they average about 22 wins a season. We like to talk about parity in the league and how it's great that there's more than 3 or 4 teams that might win an NBA championship. But the fact is, you can't have 60-plus win teams without having some 20-win teams at the bottom of the standings also. Somebody's got to lose those fucking games, right? So, yeah. Expansion or whatever, that's just how it works. Is your bottom 5 teams are going to be bad. And let's not forget that expansion has continued. The league continued to expand. I mentioned the Charlotte Bobcats earlier. They were an expansion team because the Hornets left for New Orleans. Uh, and we saw that Charlotte expansion team during LeBron James's career win, what was it, 7 or 9 games? It was that shortened season. But yeah, they won like single digit games. Does that mean that, does that take away from LeBron James making the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever that year? No, of course not. Also, not for nothing, when Jordan was playing, we didn't have teams tanking for the lottery. We didn't have Philadelphia's of the world trusting the process. We didn't have teams or we didn't have teams losing on purpose because they couldn't compete without draft picks. The draft has changed a lot over the years, but yeah, tanking is something that is specific to the LeBron James era. So think about that as well. But also, I find it really interesting that this is an argument that LeBron James fans want to prop up. That being that expansion waters down the league and less teams equals, or more teams equals less talent or less competition overall. Because when we talk about GOATs and those 5 or 6 names get mentioned, I've always been very impressed by Bill Russell's career. 11 championships in 13 years. Well, they'll dismiss that right out of hand because of what, there was only 8, 10, 12 teams in the league while Russell was dominating. Well, if more teams equals more watered down teams, then less teams have to be more powerful consolidations of talent, right? There's only 8 teams in the league now. It's going to be, 8 really strong teams. There's going to be 8 really great fucking teams. You're going to have, you're going to have all-stars coming off your bench. But no, they want to dismiss 50s era basketball. And I get it. There's no good game footage. It's all black and white. It's in, 80 HP or something. Stuff's unwatchable, and it's hard to access, it's hard to digest the game of yesteryear. I see young people trying to go back and watch games in the 90s, and they're like, this shit's unwatchable because it's so slow, because it's so different from what they're used to seeing. But those games happened, and people were trying to win those games. Okay? Bill Russell didn't win 11 championships because he was the only one who wanted to win. All those other 8, 10, 12 teams wanted to win, and they all had talent, and he dominated them. Also, not for nothing, there are more teams now than there were when Jordan played. We've expanded again. I mentioned the Bobcats. So is the league more watered down now than it was when Jordan played? No, obviously not. The league is a beacon for talent. And if you can put a ball through a hoop and you can do it at an elite level, you will find your way to the league. You know, their teams are turning down incredibly talented players for non-basketball reasons. But let's get into specifically the expansion of during Michael Jordan's career. Okay, there were 6 teams added over 2 decades. There were 4 teams added in the 1980s, and there were 2 teams added in the 1990s. Uh, in the 90s, the mid 90s, we saw the 2 Canadian teams, Toronto and Vancouver, coming to the league. And, well, let's see. The In the 88 and 89 seasons, between 88 and 89, the Charlotte Hornets, the Miami Heat, and the Orlando Magic all joined the league. Okay, that's by 89. Those 3 teams are in the league. By 1992, the Miami Heat had made the playoffs. Okay, the first of those 3 expansion teams to make the playoffs, and they did it in 4 seasons. By 93, the Hornets made their first playoff appearance, and they won their first round series against the Boston Celtics. Kind of a tragedy, in that story, but a win is a win. And so, yeah, by 93, we had expansion teams winning playoff series. In 94, the Orlando Magic made the playoffs. Now, they lost their first round series, but the very next year, 95, when Jordan was out of the league, we saw an expansion team, one of these teams we're talking about, made the fucking NBA Finals. Shaquille O'Neal. And that's it. There's the trick right there. That's what JJ Reddick is not taking into account. And that's the thing that I just want to do. I just want to add a little context to some of these discussions. Shaquille O'Neal was drafted in 1992. He went to an expansion team. When the league expands, in case you didn't know, when the league expands, they have an expansion draft, and you're able to pick players from. Or each team is able to secure a certain number of players, and then the rest are eligible for a draft that the expansion teams get to select. The expansion teams are also usually awarded a pretty high draft pick. Now, this wasn't the Orlando Magic's first year in existence that they got Shaq, so they fumbled around for a little while, but once they got that number 1 draft pick, they got Shaquille O'Neal. And yeah, so here it is. Here's the rub. In 2018, Bleacher Report put out a list, and they ranked the top 10 draft classes in NBA history, going all the way back to the 50s, the inception of the league. And they had a formula. They had rating players and what they accomplished throughout their career. But of the top 10 draft classes in NBA history, 6 of them occurred during Michael Jordan's career. The number 1 ranked draft class was Michael Jordan's draft class. So he came into the league with the best draft class of all time. But the number 8, the number 6, the number 5, the number 3, 2, and 1 ranked draft classes of all time happened during Jordan's career, during the expansion era. Yeah, we had more teams in the league, or the league added teams, but the league also added an unprecedented amount of talent during Michael Jordan's career, and yet he was still able to dominate. And like I said, you look at it, you get one or two good drafts, and you're not a garbage team anymore. Like I said, the Hornets won that first playoff series because they had a number 1 draft pick followed by a number 2 draft pick, and that'll change an expansion team real quick. And again, that's what's going to happen to these teams that are at the bottom of the standings. Eventually, they get better through the draft. Usually, historically, what we've seen doesn't really take a long time. Doesn't necessarily take 10 years for a team to become relevant. So again, just want to throw that context out there and remind you guys, it's easy to say things. It's easy to cherry pick ideas, and it's easy to say, the classic is Michael Jordan never won without Scottie Pippen. I mean, technically that's true. You got him on a technicality, but technically, LeBron James never made a finals until he played with Larry Hughes. Anyway, I'm Tommy West. Peace.